Hello everyone, I'm here with yet another episode in Azure on Air. And today I have got such an experienced person with me. He has been in the software world since 1992 with wide range of knowledge spectrum spread across enterprises, domains and technologies. He has been an Microsoft certified trainer since 1996 and I'm sure we are going to have a lot to learn from him in this today session with him. Samuel Kastberg, welcome you to Azure On Air.
Today I see BizTalk at still it's a stable product. It's a relevant platform today. But so if you look at how the products could support at Microsoft, and today we see that business drives this a lot more than previously. And then you will have another challenge that will be the technical depth. Thank you for having me.
That's wonderful to have you in our show, Sam. And today I would like to hear more from you. You're so experienced. I'm excited to learn more from your experience. Like, how has been your journey in the IT industry since the way time you started with?
Yeah, well, I started more as a developer,
Mm-hmm.
sort of working with normal applications. That 92, so it was like working with. I worked with something called Superbase, that was something like Access like, and then moved on to Visual Basic,
Mm-hmm.
and worked as a trainer later on the Windows platform. So
Mm-hmm.
both Windows operating system, then SQL Server, because I was sort of moved back to the developer side
Mm-hmm.
with working with BizTalk Server, come a lot later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I had an engagement like 2005,
Mm-hmm.
and the customer sort of needed to get the integration working on their side. And when we had solved a lot of critical issues on the application that we were working with,
Mm-hmm.
I told the customer, well, and now you need to take care of the integration with all the other systems. We were working with 15 different car manufacturers, so it was a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
and I had heard at that time about a product called BizTalk Server,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him, hey, this product can solve a lot of your problems, but I don't know a thing about it. But he was quite pleased. I had the privilege to actually on paid time learn uh,
Mm-hmm.
BizTalk to solve the problems they had, and since then I've been around in the integration area.
That's awesome. Like some more like you have been from the early stages of BizTalk till BizTalk 2020 now. So a
Yes.
wide experience with the BizTalk server versions, isn't it? So how do you see the current and future role of BizTalk server in enterprise business?
Well, today I see BizTalk at still it's a stable product. It's a relevant platform
Mm-hmm.
today. But if we sort of see the landscape where we're moving,
Mm-hmm.
I see that the product somehow is moving out. When it will happen, we actually don't know. I mean, we've been talking about the death of BizTalk since the 2009 version,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still around. So we really don't know exactly um, where we're heading, but we can see sort of at some point we will have an end of life. If it will be 2020 version, or if it come anymore, we don't know today. But it's still a relevant product for many organizations.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for we have a flagship product called BizTalk 360, which is built to support BizTalk server, and we
Yes.
still see huge number of customers who have got their integrations in BizTalk, and they are going to remain in BizTalk for an considerable amount of time in future. So, what signals does the extension to mainstream support of BizTalk 2020 give us?
So if you look at how the products could support at Microsoft,
Mm-hmm.
um, I used to work at the Microsoft organization, the support organization. So now I
Mm-hmm.
work at Solidify,
Yeah.
but I'm quite into this. And
Mm-hmm.
you can separate the product support in three phases. So you
Mm-hmm.
have the mainstream support that usually is 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and during that period, you are allowed to, or you will get security updates. You can request from the product team. You can
Mm-hmm.
request new features that you might want to need. And of course, you have, if you have the Premier support or unified support, you're entitled to get incident support for that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have an extended period that is 5 more years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and during those years, you get the security updates, and if you have the right kind of support, you get the incident support. But there is a difference in how you actually sort of pay for the service.
Mm-hmm.
And later, when you come to custom, that is the last part, you're a little bit more on your own.
Mm-hmm.
During custom support to actually get the support from the product team, it costs you, and you, yeah, it's a special process.
Mm-hmm.
So the extension means that during 3 more years, you will actually be able to receive the security updates. You are able to request features, and you have the incident support. So it's a signal that, hey, we are here to help you. So from that perspective. On the other hand, uh, to request new features, you have to have really good reasons to actually get them. At the point, I think, at least that's my
Absolutely.
experience with the communication I had the last years.
Yes, being a product company, we can completely correlate to what you are saying. Like raising and request, it should make sense to multiple other customers. Only then I can get that done. That's
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yes, we observe that the support for BizTalk server is getting extended. It is also an observation that there are a number of organizations who are choosing to go ahead with the Azure integration services, isn't it? Moving on to the cloud. What do you see are the main reasons to move the integrations to Azure integration services?
So, from my perspective, if we look at how we're
Mm,
working today, we're changing how we build our applications, and with that also
mm,
how business is done. Depending on different organizations, it will be
absolutely.
the driver will be, sometimes it's the technology, sometimes it's the business. And
Mm,
today we see that business drives this a lot more than previously.
mm,
Previously we had sort of, um, we told the business, hey, these are the things we can do, and now business is more saying, hey, can you
mm,
do these things for me, more than previously. And uh, we're moving from on premises to the cloud. So that's of course a quite natural reason why starting to use Azure integration services.
mm,
And today we're buying more as a service
mm,
rather. So when we're buying some functionality, a product,
mm,
we're buying it more as a service rather than having our own installation of let's say Dynamics. We will not install that, and BizTalk is sort of for the on-premises world where we
mhm,
have the installations ourselves. We own, so to say, the entire environment. um, and then you have also that BizTalk have been around for a long time. I have
mm,
a large set of features, but
mhm,
some features they haven't followed.
mhm,
Like if you just take something that is today, where it's quite common to work with JSON,
mm,
and if we look at how it's still, I mean, we started the pain, I think it was around 2013, and
mhm,
we thought, hey, this is, yeah, it doesn't work perfectly. And it's still, we're still there. Yes,
mm,
some things have got better, but we're not. So to some point, the product haven't completely followed in what's
mm,
happening in the rest of the landscape. So those, I think moving on, and
Mm.
yeah, and you will run into some challenges, of course, if staying on it.
On it. Yep, absolutely. So, as you rightly said, technology evolves to meet the need of business demands. So, what challenges do you see organizations staying back in Bistec Server?
I think stuffing. People is the main problem. I've seen it. I mean, like when I worked with Superbase,
Mm-hmm.
at that time it was at another level, but uh, Access was released, and suddenly the customers disappeared from the product. I think it's still around, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but what happened there is actually exactly the same that is happening in the change we're seeing now. If you look at all the skilled people working that have been working with BizTalk Server for a long, long time,
Mm-hmm.
they might continue to work with BizTalk. I mean, I still work sometimes a bit with BizTalk, but uh, skilled people move on further to the new technology. It might be for different reasons. It could be business, or it could be
Mm-hmm.
that I think it's cool with the new stuff. I mean, we're interested in new things, so we want to do that, and so um, people, I think, is the biggest problem, because you will have people moving on,
Mm-hmm.
and other people. I mean, it will always be someone that wants to stay
Mm-hmm.
uh, and earn money on that, but it will give you sort of a slower pace, I think. So that's another challenge, that
Mm-hmm.
every time you're going to do something, you have less people to work with. You
Mm-hmm.
have eventually try to find some workarounds to get it to work with the surrounding world,
Mm-hmm.
and then you will have another challenge that will be the technical depth. For each day you're staying, and the depth will become bigger. So
Mm-hmm.
that is uh, sort of the main reasons that I see, or the challenges that I see in the long run.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more with you on the challenge that you have identified. But you should also help us understand, do you see any trend among the customers that you work with in this matter?
Yes, definitely. I mean, if I look back a couple of years, or let's say,
Mm-hmm.
if we divide it in certain,
Mm-hmm.
like 5, 6 years
Yes.
ago,
Yeah. Mm.
the period, during that period, yeah, we have always the early adopters that were,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm going to test this, I'm going to work with this,
Mm-hmm.
um, and but most of the customers that work with BizTalk that I work with, they
Mm-hmm.
were they were not interested for different reasons, but it was not on the agenda to actually do the move.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but today I see, let's say like 3 years ago, better. So about 3 years ago, I started to see that I had a lot of customers that suddenly, from um, just reading about it,
Mm-hmm.
started to actually do POCs and have some solutions that they wanted, some small solutions they started working with.
Mm-hmm.
And like about 2 years ago, actually, it started happening that I had a lot of customers that started,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not a plan to do a big migration. Some of them did,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely it's, hey, when we're going to work with something, we do it first with Azure integration services. So I see the trend that it's
Mm-hmm.
raising, is more and more, and customers that for some reason, sort of, Azure was not in for eventually for regulations. Azure was
Mm-hmm.
not in the run for them.
Mm-hmm.
They um, they started to. to at least look at it. So I
Mm.
see it increases more and more. So yeah,
Yes.
definitely a trend there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, since we are a part of this journey for multiple of our BizTalk 360 customers, I have also observed something interesting, Samuel. Like the organizations want to take advantage of cloud features like continuous integration and continuous development, no downtime. And in that case, they are preferring to lift and shift their entire application to the Azure Kubernetes or container services as a first step, and then re-architecture them into microservices when their business timeline permits. Yes, I absolutely, I agree with you on the trend has drastically increased over the last couple of years, and this is something that I would like to add on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is in your opinion on the pace of the transformation should have been?
Uh, when I discuss this
Mm-hmm.
with my customers, I generally say move at the speed of business.
Absolutely.
It's um, just an example.
Mm-hmm.
We had two different customers. I worked as customer engineer at Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
at that time, and I
Mm-hmm.
had two different customers, and both were had like
Mm-hmm.
um, defined clear cloud
Mm-hmm.
uh, strategy. So both customers said, "Hey, we're going to go to the cloud,"
Mm-hmm.
and we had a lot of discussions on where they were, what systems were going to change, and so on. And we came actually to two completely different
Mm-hmm.
decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
with one of the customers, they decided to, okay, we stay on BizTalk 2016 because they had 2016
Mm-hmm.
that time, and so the question was, hey, should we move to 2020 or should
Mm-hmm.
we move to the cloud, and so and with that customer, they decide, okay, we stay with 2016 because they had one system that sort of they had like 70% of their integrations were related to this logistics system, and they
Oh,
were going to change that within the coming year.
absolutely.
So in the discussions, we, hey, moving to 2020
Mm-hmm.
was not an option. It's better to actually do it directly in Azure Integration Services instead, and that's the path they took. With
Mm-hmm.
other customers, they sort of were in a quite stable,
Mm-hmm.
um, but they wanted to move to Azure quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also on BizTalk 2016. And
Mm-hmm.
with them, the discussion came to that, okay, we can actually move to 2020 quite fast. So what
Mm-hmm.
they did was they actually created an environment in Azure
Mm-hmm.
for BizTalk 2020, and they moved all the integrations there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really pleased with that, how it works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, in parallel, they actually starting the work to move to Azure Integration Services. So it depends a little bit on um, where are you, what is your current state,
Mm.
how is your surrounding environment moving. So that's basically what's the pace of business.
Yes, absolutely. So, from your point of view, how should a good migration plan look like?
You should start a little bit going back to what we just talked about.
Yeah.
You should always start investigating
Mm.
your current state.
Mm.
Look at it from both the technical perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but also the business perspective. Because when I mean, if you look at what happens over time in a business, is that
Mm-hmm.
you have some systems and you you have an investment, so you want to sort of um, get a return from it over a longer time. But maybe after a while, the you would like to change a little bit on how
Mm-hmm.
the business processes works,
Mm-hmm.
and that is important.
So it should be an informed decision and evaluated at every step is what we can sum it up into, isn't it, Sam?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And sometimes you need to accept. I mean, with like with one customer, they
Hmm.
they knew that they needed to
Mm-hmm.
actually change an application, do it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit sort of odd solution
Okay. Okay.
that would for a while cost them a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but they sort of thought that it was a good idea to actually to do it anyway, and it was informed, so they actually knew, hey, this will cost me a little bit during
Mm.
a while until we get the functionality that
Mm.
makes solves that in a good way.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm, mm. To settle down. It would take a time, but still, my cost, security, everything is an informed decision and it is kept under control.
yep.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. From the technical perspective, is there any key areas that we need to be aware of before we start this migration?
We talked a little bit about error handling
Yeah.
and the strategy having with that and the monitoring. It's definitely something that you need to
Mm.
have at an early stage in building your application. I mean,
Mm.
moving around data
Mm-hmm.
is sort of bread and butter for us. So it's yeah, we solve that kind of things quite
Mm-hmm.
easily.
Mm.
Um, uh, but the error handling and the monitoring is a change
Mm.
in how we are going to work, and that is important to and it definitely a key area to look into, and also how you work with. Are we still going to work with batches?
Mm-hmm.
How will we use the uh, like more event-driven
Approach.
solutions in our applications? That kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to look at. Hey, can we solve this in a different way than we do today?
Yes, to sum it up, and do you have any do's and don'ts that people need to be aware of in the transformation work, which can be the takeaways to all our listeners here?
Yeah, I start with the don't.
Yes, that's
um,
more important. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put proof
Mm-hmm.
of concept code in production. We
Yes.
start there. I actually see that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a problem we had for ages that
Mm-hmm.
people do some tests and hey, it works. We actually solved the problem somehow,
Yeah.
uh, and then the manager says, well, then we put it into production,
Mm-hmm.
and you solved the technical problem, but you didn't handle all the things around it. So uh, when you have done a proof of concept, uh, sort of throw it away. Of course, you use the knowledge and eventually use some parts, but don't put it into production.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then don't just move your integrations
Mm-hmm.
as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Really do your homework with looking how business have changed,
Yes.
uh, and remember that
Mm-hmm.
the behaviors that you're expected from BizTalk servers are different than the ones that you
Mm-hmm.
have in Azure integration services. So
Mm-hmm.
don't just move in. Do an informed sort of transformation of it. So you do it in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and don't think about Azure integration services as one product. And this is something that I
Mm-hmm.
see here and there too often. I would say that people talk depending on your preference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some say, "Hey, I prefer to work with Logic Apps," and every solution is a Logic App solution.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or I like to write code, so I prefer to use Azure Functions. Um, and you some want, hey, I want always to use event hubs,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And that's a problem.
Mm,
You need to, so don't see just one product,
mm,
see the whole stack
mm,
that you have. um, like if you're going to do some data movement of a bit larger, look into data factory and use it, and don't get stuck with one way of doing things.
mm, mm,
It's important to see, just as we did in BizTalk server, some things we did with orchestrations, and but we prefer to do it with messaging, and
mm,
that is, I mean, we use the right tooling. So that is really, so don't think one product
mm,
is one don't. If we go over to the do's,
mhm,
um, I would start with commitment from business. So it's important. So if you don't have the
mhm.
commitment from the business to do the change,
Yeah.
um, it it's a problem. So it's really important. Now,
Mhm,
in I would say in most or of the customers that I work with,
mhm,
the business is involved from early stages,
mhm,
but don't let it be like a technical driver of it. It must be come from the business, so they commit to the change
mhm,
of it. Then, think of the life cycle. We work at Solidify. We work a lot with life cycle of applications, and it's a key component actually to get the, your applications into production in
mhm,
a good, stable way. So you actually know that, hey, we deploy this, and we know that it deployed nicely into dev, into
mhm,
test, and now into production.
mm.
So that is really something that you have to do. Um, Plan for refactoring.
Yeah.
We will do things wrong. It doesn't matter if we are so experienced,
Mhm,
we will do things wrong. And now that we have more unknowns and that we actually have a moving platform,
mhm,
um, it's actually better to to plan for do some refactoring.
mm,
So, like we had with one customer I worked with, we had um, we needed to do a lot of mapping.
mhm,
Um, so we had an integration account in every environment, and they had 4 environments. So it's
mhm.
just to calculate how much it became a year.
Yeah.
um, so and suddenly, for some business reasons, we didn't need all those mappings. So I ended up with actually three mappings that we really needed to do, and having an integration account with the cost of it for three mappings,
Yeah.
it didn't make sense.
Mm,
So we actually sort of took the time. In that case, it was 8 hours, and those mappings were out.
mhm,
I implemented it in an Azure function instead. Um, so that was really easy, but you will do eventually major
mhm,
faults,
mhm,
and sometimes you need, I mean, it could be that you need to get to market.
mm,
So that's a key thing, that um, you need to get to market, so you take a decision that, hey, this will cost me, or this will be bad in some way,
yeah.
um, and we put it on the list of things that we need to address. So plan for factoring.
Yes.
Um, getting back, I have a little list here on the side.
Yeah.
Use all the products in Azure Integration Services, so you have the entire stack to work with. And
Mhm,
also, if you don't have experience here, so if you don't have really skilled people that have done this several times,
mhm,
either taking someone externally, or sort of get the staffing. So get someone, and I would say having a speaking partner
mhm,
is really key here. And it can look in different ways, how you solve it, but yes, to have someone to discuss with on
mhm.
your solutions, I think it's a key part. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are at least some of the do's and don'ts.
Absolutely. Very useful do's and don'ts. I think it would be useful for the listeners as well. And thank you so much for sharing a lot of your experience with us, Sam. I didn't realize how the last minutes went off, and lots of learning. I have taken in long notes all the key takeaways that I have to carry forward in our day to day activities. Thank you so much for being on our show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Cove.co